everybody, and welcome to the second podcast of the Apex Zone. We have a much larger selection of people within the podcast this time, given the popularity of our last one. So, guys, feel free to introduce yourselves.
Hello, I am Xeno.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kuma.
Hi, I'm Golden.
Fantastic. And I'd like to introduce you to our editor, Stan, the editor from Pakistan. Stan, okay, funny joke, not really. He's editing this. And gosh, we have to give him such a big hand because we can fuck up a lot during these podcasts, and he's the one who has to clear it up in the studio afterwards. But in any case, yeah, everybody be sure to thank him for that. He has a very difficult job. So yeah, anyways, moving on. Does anybody have anything they'd like to begin talking about? Because we're doing this sort of freestyle. We spitballed earlier, but nothing conclusive came about. So I don't know, you guys just throw ideas out there. We'll see where it goes.
Okay, so I've been researching a lot of ideologies and political sidings with democracy and a bunch of governments and whatnot. And my question is, most of the youth today, do you think that they have an identity for their ideology or political siding? A lot of youth today, if you think about it, they have a sense of identity when it comes to that stuff. That's what I'm trying to say. They say that they're this ideology, they're left or right, they're conservative, or they're
Liberal.
Liberal, yeah, basically. And they can say it proud. Or they're a socialist or a communist or something like that. They're able to say it. I think that youth today is able to do that without any problem. Because, hey, it's 2018.
Okay, well, we promised that we wouldn't go so heavy in the second podcast, but that's a really amazing topic that I haven't thought about before, so I'm definitely down to discuss that. I have an answer. I think I have to disagree with you there because I feel not many youths are now as educated on the kind of governments and the politics that are going on in their own nations. It's not as widely known. People nowadays, if I know my fellow brethren of teenagers, they don't care about politics. They don't care whether they're left or right. They'll just do what they're told by their parents. They're more interested in looking at dank memes or whatever, using the internet to entertain themselves. I think politics is definitely a lot more disregarded nowadays than it used to be before. So, no, I really don't think that people can identify their own ideologies and, beliefs as strongly as they could have done in the past from their parents and their grandparents. So, yeah, I think people are they're not as educated anymore. So that's my response if anyone wants to, have a go at me.
Well, I'm kind of in that, I'm in a neutral area. I see where Xeno's coming from, but I also see where you're coming from, Bio. I mean, yeah, not everyone can call themselves a liberal or conservative or socialist or communist. Not everyone can do that, but there are a select few people who can. And those are the people who are very proud to say it, and they can say it without caring what anyone else says. But my idea on the topic is that, well, yes, people can do it, and they do it, and there are still those select few people who still can't do that.
Yes, because I'm in many, as you know, I spend most of my time on Discord. I've met a lot of young people about my age, 14, 13, who have their own sense of identity when it comes to that stuff. I'm in a few groups, there's 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds who consider themselves far-right nationalist or left libertarian. I met a libertarian communist once.
That's an interesting combo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. There's a bunch of stuff and different ideologies I've been learning because I'm into politics. I'm into that kind of stuff. I kind of care what my future is, And it would be nice to think that others do as well,
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, but not everyone can relate to the same way you can on politics. I mean, I can, but I also can't. I'm always in that neutral area when it comes to politics. But yeah, I guess if it were really come down to the point where it was up to us teenagers to discuss politics and show to the world, yeah, I think I would be able to do that.
Well, Rex says, to be honest, the new generation, most people just say what they want and shit. The older generations are the ones that have heavy laborers. So basically what she's saying is newer generations, we don't really focus completely on politics. Mainly the older generation, like Trump's generation and all that, they mainly focus. You can see that mainly politicians are older than, you don't see like 20 or 30-year-old politicians, because those were the people that were affected by the wars and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, people who are older generally have lived in their countries for a longer period of time, that goes without saying, and are more up to date as to how their country wants to be run. They know and they have the experience as to how a country should be done and run, and what sort of laws should be implemented, what sort of benefit system. I could go on about different government enlistments, but they know. The older people know. The younger people, they don't. All they have is stuff from their parents. But you brought up an interesting point about Trump. I think Trump's presidency is a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call for the young people in America to realize, hey, you vote for the wrong guy, and this is what you get. Trump is going to do something stupid, and I'm not saying he hasn't. He already has. But he's going to do something preposterously stupid to the point where people will realize, oh shit, I can't, muck about when it comes to voting. I can't muck about when it comes to understanding politics. I need to be up to date with this. Otherwise, look at that. Another Trump is going to happen.
All right, and you were completely correct on that side of the subject, Bio, but I like keeping up with daily news around the world, and yes, I agree that Trump the Oompa Loompa is going to end up doing something really, really stupid. But one thing that I've noticed since Trump's presidency is that if you look at the stock market for the Dow Jones, it's exponentially higher than usual.
Okay, so along with that, I was rooting for Trump early on in the election. I was rooting mainly because he had his nationalist views. Most of what he has done so far, he's been told to do by somebody else. I feel as if he's not going to keep up on some of the promise, or, not all presidents are able to keep up on that kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong. No one's perfect. But some of the stuff that the main key points of why people voted for him, he has not done yet. And people are still waiting. Some people who voted for him are kind of regretting it, because why vote for someone who says one thing and then does the other?
There's a two side to it. He said he was going to do certain things, and he still hasn't done those things yet. There are presidents who have also followed the same ideals. They say something to get the votes, and then once they get into office, they don't really follow through.
But there's no politician who isn't like that. Many people who run for presidents, who run for the presidency, or run for, being the prime minister over here in the UK, they all make promises which most of the time they can't maintain. They can't do what they said they were going to do, and that's just, I don't know why that is exactly, to be honest. I'm not that politically updated. Maybe because they have other people who, are touring their decisions or whatever. But in any case, I think Trump is obviously no exception to that. He did promise some things which he didn't deliver on. But I think the reason why people are regretting voting for him isn't because of that. It's just because of the things that he's done in the past. If we were to talk about how Trump got elected, I think you can just simply put it out as his personality. It was his personality that was responsible. He was the biggest character. I've never seen someone more interesting than Trump. Take Hillary, for example. Who was she? All she was is a female. That's the only exciting thing about her. The fact that she could have made a female president. That's literally the only thing. Over here, to get a foreigner's perspective, I obviously live in the UK, all we talked about was Trump when it came to discussing American politics. There was no Hillary, there was no whatever. I don't even know the other politicians' names, because Trump was the big one. He got all the media coverage because what he did was drastic and, bombastic. That's what gets people interested. And when you get people interested, you get their votes. But now, because Trump is being a large, dictatorial, stupid president, people are realizing and regretting that, I sort of voted for just, media personality. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, because obviously there are consequences. So that's my 2 cents.
Alright, so you guys hear about when Trump ended up recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital?
Yeah, I remember hearing something about that.
I don't support that at all.
Why is that?
He's gonna start a war again.
I mean, okay, so for those of you who aren't geopolitically updated or informed or whatever, educated, there is this thing going on between the Palestinians and the Israelis, and it's very nasty. They both want to kill each other because of religious stuff and just, like, again, geopolitical stuff. And Trump naming Jerusalem as the new capital for Israel would mean the Palestinians would get very angry and start throwing some large missiles at the Israelis. So what he's done there by saying that is basically not initiated, but basically initiating a war. If that were to take place, that would be war. And he's basically just encouraging a war. So I think that's definitely a dodgy move on his part.
Yeah, I agree with it being it's not a smart idea. I completely agree with it not being a smart idea. But there's also the fact that this isn't the first time he's almost started a war. I mean, like, if you looked at his past actions, like the threats between Trump and North Korea and the whole locking down the borders thing, that almost started a World War III.
The thing with North Korea is a lot of the times they say something, they don't do it.
Yeah, they're all talk, no balls.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, that guy up there in his ivory tower, Kim Jong-un or whatever, he doesn't have the balls to do anything. And if he does, well, he's just ignorant. He doesn't know what's coming. He doesn't realize how.
No. If you think about it, if he were to attack us, NATO would be on that real fast. Since we have the UN, we have NATO, and think about everybody that North Korea is sided with, and trading with trading partners. If we were to probably attack, say, China and North Korea, if they were trading partners, or they had really good relations, which they most likely do, we will start another war, because we'd go against China, because if we attack North Korea, China gets involved. They're allies, so they're diplomatic allies. And then we have to go against China, our main trading partner, mind you. I mean, they make everything from America, dude. Then
basically,
NATO gets on it. That's European, and then I'm pretty sure the United Nations would try to stop this by now. But if there's a crazy midget sitting there shooting nukes at people, and then they don't stop that, and then it suspects a war. It's just unhealthy for everyone. And the last thing we need is another war, especially at this day and age with nuclear weapons and whatnot. I really don't want a war, because it's more or less not even going to be a war of troop power. It's going to be a war of
nuclear power.
Yeah, whoever can blow the other person up.
Well, I think I'm saying and emphasis on the if we were to have a World War III, and it was going to be nuclear war, the problem with that is that we have the most nuclear weapons in the entire world.
Oh yeah, you have like twice the amount of Russia, I swear.
Yeah, but the problem is that we let it get to our head. Us having so many thinks that we can just throw so many out at once.
The problem with
not a smart idea.
Russia has the most nuclear weapons at this moment.
Do they? I thought it was America that had like the most.
No, America has like 2,800 something. Russia is way ahead of them.
Oh, sorry. Apologies for that bit of misinformation. Yeah, no, sorry.
The problem with Russia is they have the Tsar bomb as well.
Oh god, yeah.
Oh yeah, the bomb that completely defeats any other bomb in comparison.
Yes, the Tsar bomb would annihilate New York City and the state of New York itself. Like, the Tsar bomb's pretty, like... Yeah, I don't mean just with shockwave, I mean with the radiation and everything.
With radiation, shockwave, blast radius...
Yes, nuclear fallout would happen.
Nuclear fallout. Well, of course, you drop that on New York City, you're vaporizing half of New York City. Actually, no, take that back. You're vaporizing the entirety of New York City. The shockwave is enough to take out the rest of the state.
That's a crime against humanity. You're killing.
Yeah. Now, the problem is that military strategy would say go for military usefulness. So, like, if we were to have a nuclear war, we wouldn't go after the big cities. We'd go after the cities that have military infrastructure within that city.
After 9/11, New York City has a shit ton of military infrastructure. 9/11 fixed a lot of things, but 9/11, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, that's a whole different topic. We can have another day.
I just want to jump in here. Our editor, who we sort of introduced at the beginning, he's just enabled his mic, and he has some varying opinions on different things. Editor, take it away.
As a European, I'm pretty sure that all you Americans are seeing this in the wrong way. The fact is, NATO's not going to stand with the US. Britain, France, Germany, Turkey, we've all lost our military capacities. We don't have the ability to fight. If you look at the UK, 20 years ago, we were struggling in the Falklands War. Now we don't even have the capacity to patrol our own waters. How the hell do you think we're going to help you guys with North Korea and everything? Our problem is Russia. The fact is that Europe doesn't care about China, Europe doesn't care about North Korea as long as they sell stuff to us, as long as they give us stuff. We just care about Russia, so you guys are on your own, in all honesty.
Right, and I see where you're coming from, because geologically, you guys are right on the border of Russia, and you have to deal with an entire front right there.
Yeah, but the problem is that we don't have the capacity anymore, because after the Cold War, all of the European countries said, look, we aren't empires anymore, we don't have this capacity, we can't try to be like the US. If you take my country, the UK, for a long time our policy was, let's try to mimic the US. We can't do it in the same quantity, but we can have the quality. But the problem was that a great power or middle power can't have superpower weapons. Like, look at the number of carriers the US has, and look at the number of carriers the rest of NATO has. We have basically nothing, right? Britain can't even buy jets for its carriers because the pound went down after Brexit and they're made in the US, right? We have no capacity to help you guys anymore. And the problem is with Russia as well, like, is the US going to help us? Because we can't actually survive against the Russians. It's in the news in the UK. 900 troops in Estonia was considered a massive amount. Just 900. If the Russians attack, that's how much the UK is going to contribute. And if you look at the rest of Europe, it's about, 3,000 apart from the border states? So without the US, we're screwed. So we need you guys more than you need us.
Yeah, right, and you are correct on that. Going all the way back to World War I, all the way up to now, the UK and the entire Central European area...
We're not Central Europe, by the way. We're not Central Europe. We're Western Europe. Central Europe is like Hungary stuff.
Right, okay, so Western Europe, and that entire area was kind of getting boxed in. Like, Germany was right in the center. Germany had to fight on two fronts, the UK and the US, and Russia and everything else that was on that side. So the Central powers versus the Axis powers.
The Central powers were World War One. The Axis powers were World War Two. I think you got a bit confused there.
Yeah,
The Central powers were basically the Axis powers of World War II. It was Germany and
Bulgaria, the great power of Bulgaria. Everyone remembers them.
Anyways, you guys have lost a lot of troops over time, and you are correct. You guys do not have the capacity to fight on a front against an entire country.
I mean, if you look at wars that have been fought over the last few decades, it's always been skirmishes. It's never actually been a proper war. Like, take the Falklands War. Literally, after the first Argentinian ship was sunk, they withdrew their whole navy and they were like, well, we can't afford to fight anymore. Wars nowadays are skirmishes between superpowers, great powers, and third world countries. And an actual all-out nuclear war isn't probably going to happen. Once you have nuclear weapons, you're basically safe from going to war with another nuclear power.
Alright, so here's the thing. NATO being a small organization now...
NATO's not small. NATO's massive. I mean, we've got 29 members. Montenegro just joined last year. If you've seen the video of the Montenegrin Prime Minister, I think, getting shoved by Trump, that shows how important they were. But anyway.
Okay, well, before we just turn this into a massive history lesson... hate to change the topic so violently, but our editor Stan, I think he has a lot of information about this subject. But yeah, sorry, I'm telling this is a bloody 180. But there is
geopolitics 101 at the moment. Yeah, definitely had to fix it.
Yeah, let's end it on a slightly, well, I can't say more positive, but definitely I guess more interesting for certain audiences.
The Montenegrin head of state getting pushed down by Trump is positive, but depends on how you look at it. Depends on how you look at it.
In any case, breaking news, apparently there is this new drug going around which is turning people... Flakka? Bingo, you got it before I even finished my sentence. Flakka. This is a new drug that is
It's not new, actually. It was invented by the Chinese in the 1960s. It's just got imported to the West quite recently.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean, in the sense that people are now taking it more and it's becoming more popular in the US. It is a drug outbreak.
I think it's kind of a way revenge, because if you look back to it, in the 1860s, the UK was selling China opium, and when they refused to buy it because they were all getting high off it, we killed them. Because that's what you do when people stop buying your drugs. And now the Chinese are sending the drugs back to the West. It's kind of like revenge. Like, we gave them drugs, and now they're giving us drugs.
Yeah, but they're taking revenge on the wrong person, or the wrong country, sorry. Not the UK, they're doing it for the US. I'm pretty sure to them,
like, anybody who's, like, any country that's majority white is basically the same. I'm pretty sure.
To them.
From their perspective.
Well, besides that being wildly racist, I kind of want to talk about the symptoms here, because apparently this drug is so powerful and so, devastating that it turns people into practically primal savages, like almost zombie-like creatures. They're running around madly, crashing into cars, naked on the streets, doing all sorts of random crap. It's really serious.
In Florida, where one man got so high in flakka, I think it was a few years back, that what happened was he ran naked down a street, got tasered multiple times, but then shrugged them off, drilled a hole into a tree, and then raped the tree.
Okay, so I was listening to a conversation for a bit because I noticed that it kind of changed subjects. There are actually a few cases of drug uses and naked people.
Lovely. Okay.
Okay, Xeno, do you live in the United States, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I think if you were paying attention to the news a few years back, there was a case about a man who was under the influence of excessive bath salts.
Oh my god, don't even get started on bath salts.
Oh, yeah.
The guy who ate another person's face.
Wait, what? Say again?
Somebody ate somebody's face while he was...
Jesus Christ, bath salts.
Yeah, fucks you up.
So bath salts are illegal in the US, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, they are.
Dear God. So we have...
The thing I don't get with the US is you guys are legalizing marijuana, despite the fact that, it does have effects, right?
Drugs are bad. If you legalize weed, all the drug dealers that are making money don't make money much anymore because it's not legal. You actually have to get a business and actually do that. With that being said, we would be more widespread, and the government itself could tax those people who are selling. You get what I mean?
It works in the US because you guys don't have state healthcare. The problem is, I think in a country like the UK, it's not possible because we have something called the NHS. If you don't know it, you pay taxes and the government gives you healthcare, which for some reason in the US is seen as, I don't know, the devil incarnate.
Yeah.
So somebody who smokes, for instance, they're going to cost thousands of pounds, maybe even tens of thousands of pounds, right? And they probably won't be able to, the average person won't pay that much tax in their lifetime. And that means that everyone else has to shoulder the cost. So that's why I'm a bit worried that in this country, that if we start legalizing these drugs,
the money comes from
the taxpayers.
Yeah, exactly. The money is coming from the government and not out of the subject's pockets. Like it's people basically paying for your medical fees for free.
Yeah, I'd be quite interested to see what the Americans have to say. It's like, what do you guys think about state healthcare?
Well, I can't really say much on the topic because I don't really pay attention to the healthcare side of things.
Healthcare is so weird because you got Obamacare. Obama went in and kind of made it affordable for people. I don't know if that was a good idea. I mean, yes, it helps a bunch of people. A lot of people are in better positions, I guess you could say, because they don't really have to worry about paying for healthcare. But if you have a certain hospital, like I live in Ohio, I have Cleveland Clinic and shit. I have a bunch of, I don't know what it's called, university hospitals or something like that. I've been there, and my
But it's state paid, right? Is it state paid, or is it paid by the federal government?
Paid by the federal government.
Okay, because the thing I don't get is the people who benefit the most from this in the US, especially, this might seem a little bit racist, but it is statistically speaking, the people who benefit the most in the US from Obamacare are disenfranchised working white people in what are traditionally the redneck states. The problem is, they're the people who hate this as well. So I don't get, why do they hate the thing that's meant to help them?
Hey man, this is America. Welcome.
This is America. A lot of things are going down.
Personally, okay, I am mixed. I'm African American and I am Caucasian. It all depends on the culture you follow, really. It's the culture. Since America is just a big culture pot, just a big melting pot, people have their different views on things. Like, you got the rednecks who decide, hey, we don't want anything that's created by, nasty creatures such as black people. We don't want it, even though if it helps us. There's the gangsters that think that all white people are racist and that they should, that they own America. It's just the culture that influences that stuff, really. I don't think that they understand.
And it really just depends on who you are as a person.
Yeah. The healthcare, Obamacare helps them, yeah. But what do they care? Because it's not created the way they want it.
Right. It's not their picture-perfect idea.
So, I mean, America being the magical Western civilized business place is obviously going to try and make healthcare a corporation. Like, obviously they're going to want to tax people on it because
Okay.
that's business.
Bio, did you say health car?
I said health car, sorry. Edit that out, please. Please.
We'll see if that can be edited. If you're hearing this, then obviously it wasn't edited. We'll see. Depends on how I feel.
Oh, dear.
Well, let's not edit it, because that'll add a little bit of humor.
Jesus.
Okay. Alright. Anyways. The thing about the healthcare is... Fuck, I forgot what I was going to say. God damn it. Okay, continue.
But the thing with, having private healthcare and everything, the thing I don't get is the US is meant to be one of the most developed countries in the world. So, if your healthcare system is on par with places like Bangladesh, which is a fake Indian puppet state, then fight me if you think otherwise. But if it has a healthcare system that is as bad as someone like Bangladesh or Niger, in what way has the US actually developed? Because at least if you look at other European countries, they don't have an NHS, but what they have, like in France, is subsidies, so you only pay 75%. Because what I don't get is, if you break your leg in the US, it can cost $100,000 sometimes for the treatment.
It really depends. It depends on the injury.
Okay.
Most people don't earn that much in a year, so what the hell are you meant to do? I know it's meant to be the land of the free and everything, but it's more like the land of, if you don't have the money, you can just go die in a ditch.
Yeah, I agree.
That America is a capitalist state.
No, but other states are also capitalist. The UK is capitalist.
Exactly.
Just to a lesser degree. If you look at the UK, Germany, France, we have capitalism, but we also have this idea that the state needs to help you in a bit.
So we have, functioning healthcare systems. We don't tax people just because, they got a cold. That doesn't seem very friendly.
Right, let me give you guys an example. There is a place in the UK, now I don't know if you Americans know about this, called Wales. Wales is the biggest shithole, and I know, excuse my language there, I'm not trying to be racist, it literally is. And they only survive because of subsidies from places like England. Now, if we got rid of Wales, they would probably all starve to death or die because they don't actually produce anything there apart from sheep products or whatnot. But the fact is that we see it as our duty to help them because they're in the same country as us, even if it means that it costs us more. In the UK, the Scottish, the Welsh, and the Northern Irish can decide on English laws, but the English can't decide on laws for the other devolved parliaments. That's how far it's gone. I think in the US you have this with your electoral college or something, but in the UK, some people actually have more political power, even though they live in a place which relies on money from the places that have less political power.
Ever since the colonies broke away from the British, it became a capitalist state. If you notice, everything in America is run by a corporation of some sort.
Okay, the most capitalist state in the world is either Vietnam or China. And the reason for that is that they have pure... Okay,
Wait.
In China, in the stock market, it was literally a complete gamble. The government had no clue what they should do, so they got some foreigners in there and were like, can you just put some companies on the stock market? And they were like, sure. So what happened was you ended up with, I think it was like a scented wood ball making company becoming one of China's biggest online games makers. And you have hundreds of other examples of this. And the fact is that in China, some of the world's biggest companies are now emerging, like Tencent. Activision, League of Legends, all of those are owned by Tencent. Any game you play, there's probably a 10% chance that it's owned by Tencent. They're absolutely massive. They're literally everywhere. Look at things like Alibaba. You probably never heard of it, but it owns more Western businesses than you would think. The fact is the Chinese are now at the stage of pure capitalism, despite the fact that they're communist.
Yeah, okay, I agree.
No, in the US and UK and the other Western societies, you do have government intervention. I mean, if a company gets too big or something gets broken up, like look at things like all the US oil companies, like ExxonMobil, Texaco, all those. They were all once, there's like 200 of these oil companies that were all at one time part of the company that Rockefeller founded. And they were all broken up into 200 different companies, and they're still some of the biggest companies to this day.
No, I agree, because like China is definitely one of the most industrialized places on the planet. Don't get me wrong.
Industry.
Yeah, well, no, it has. It's developed by getting all this industry, by getting all these massive companies who have almost dominated the West. Like they're everywhere. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, that's great, but I still agree with the fact that despite America is capitalist and other countries are capitalist with healthcare systems that work. What is capitalism? Okay, capitalism is the divide between the poor and the rich. Put that into healthcare, you get the divide between the weak and the healthy, the strong. So technically, America being capitalist is doing the right thing by having healthcare systems that provide for everybody. That's just a little bit communist, isn't it? Like if you think about it.
Yeah,
it's not communist. It's socialist, and the fact
it's socialist, which is leaning towards communism. So technically, America is the most capitalist country. If they're like screwing over the people, it's capitalism.
It would still be China. It would still be China because China has a worse healthcare system. No, China has a. If you look at China, the majority of people earn like a few £1,000s. The fact is that you have so many Chinese billionaires coming up, and China is growing at an unprecedented rate. Their constitution is communist, but the way that they've grown so fast is that they've turned hyper-capitalist. The problem is that in the West, hyper-capitalism, we don't even recognize it because the capitalism we've grown up with
has been doused with socialism.
Yeah. The problem I think America has is you only have two main parties. You have the Democrats and the Republicans. You don't have many other parties. In somewhere like the UK and Europe, we have a lot of different parties.
We have a bunch of other parties.
But
the two main ones.
Do you care about them?
We have the Libertarian Party.
Yeah, but like who are they compared to the Democrats and the Republicans?
Yeah, just from your tone of voice, it sounds like they're a joke. The fact is that in somewhere like the UK, a party like UKIP can go from a joke fringe party with less than 0.1% of the vote
to a massive
14% of the vote in about 4 years. If you look at places like France, President Macron, who recently got elected, his party didn't even exist like 2 years ago. He just made it up and managed to become the president. You look at someone like Germany, they have coalitions of 3 or 4 or 5 parties, and Angela Merkel, she's struggling to make her coalition at the moment. So if you look at European politics, we have a much more broader but much more divided society, whereas in the US it's much more black and white. It's no grey area. We have a very certain view.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to sympathize with the Americans here. Personally, I feel what they're doing is wrong. Socialism is the way to go. Kill me, okay, if you're a super capitalist, but I don't care. This is what I believe. So I remember at the beginning of this conversation...
Why did you believe that, though?
Basically, the reason why I think socialism is the way to go is because we are a social species, okay? Humans are social creatures. This is what we're all about. Where would we be without social skills? Nowhere. We'd still be in caves smashing sticks against stuff, okay?
Yes, I agree with you, man. I agree.
Bio, didn't we bring this up in the last podcast?
I don't think. No. We never talked about left and right.
No, we brought up social skills though, and how.
Oh yeah.
Social
Exactly.
interaction to live.
Exactly. So we can like tie that in by saying, well, if we don't go down the socialist route, then we won't have things like relationships. We won't have things like friends. All we'll have is one of those dystopian futures where governments are controlling the sheep, the people, the citizens of the nations. Have you ever read the book 1986? 1984, apologies, Jesus Christ. 1984. You ever read that? That's basically what would be without socialism. So I think that if we go down the socialism route and we maintain that route, we make sure that that's the dominant one, then things will be fine. But no, capitalism is the one that strikes because it's the divide between the rich and the poor. The more privileged want to stay privileged and want to keep the poor people poor. That's how it is.
We've got to look about this is look at examples of capitalism and socialism. If you look at the socialist countries, you look at South America, does anyone know what's going on in Venezuela at the moment? So since 2000, they've had a socialist regime there, and they used to have a lot of oil money, and they were handing out subsidies left and right. You literally didn't have to pay for anything. Then the Saudis started overproducing oil to basically undermine everyone else. So Venezuela's currency became absolutely worthless. At the moment, some Venezuelans have turned to mining gold on RuneScape or something because it's the only way they can actually make a living to survive. That's how desperate they are. Because of the oil prices and the US is sanctioning them.
And why do you think that is? That's capitalism's fault.
No,
they wouldn't be like that if it wasn't for capitalism.
Them because Venezuela was trying to build nuclear weapons because they thought they had to defend their socialism. Problem is that...
And they wouldn't have to if it weren't for capitalism. I'm telling you, that's the root of all problems.
The problem is that when you have socialism, it has to be about the state. Anyone who's not from the state, from other states, becomes an enemy because they can take your resources and...
Not an enemy. No.
The way we have to look about this is taking some ideas from the left and the right. I think people are too listening. Oh, all these views go right, all these views go left, all these views go centre. They must stay together. Look, let's take France, for example. So they're a capitalist society, but they've generally been leaning on the socialist side. And so that means that despite the fact that it is a liberal economy, they do have a lot of nationalisation, which is when the state owns utility companies. So all the railways in France are state-owned. But the thing is that French railways are 20 times faster than the railways in Britain and 40 times faster than the ones in the US, because the ones in the US and the ones in the UK are owned by private corporations, and so they favour higher-paying individuals, which tends to be freight trains.
Exactly. So what's your point here? Like, surely you're...
The point is that there's other examples where you do need capitalism, because let's have a look at the socialism that's going on in Venezuela. With socialism, the problem is that somebody has to be in charge of dividing out the money, and whoever's in charge of dividing out the money is going to make sure they get a bigger cut than everyone else. I mean, look at Kim Jong-un, right? He's got billions stashed away, it's estimated, in like Swiss bank accounts, and the rest of his country is starving to death. Or look at Cuba, like the Castro family, they live a life of luxury, right? But the rest of their people live dirt poor, right? So you do need to. There are some aspects.
Yeah, but that is capitalism.
No, but
that's corruption.
In Cuba, capitalism isn't even allowed. So the fact
is that... and they're hypocrites, and that is what corruption is. What they're doing is very capitalist. They're storing away their money and not giving it to the people who need it.
Socialism, okay, I'll tell you a quote that someone told me a long time ago. Socialism is absolutely beautiful in paper, but in practice it doesn't work, because the actual people who are the socialists are fucked in the head. And the reason for that is that communism, yeah, I think you were fair in saying communism is a more extreme form of socialism. The problem is that socialism, communism, somebody has to divide out the money, and whoever is in charge of dividing out the money is sure as hell going to make sure that they get a bigger cut than everyone else.
Yeah, okay, fine. Call me Woodrow Wilson. I'm an ideologue, okay? Socialism on paper is beautiful, and I think it needs to stay that way. I know that there are going to be people who are fucked in the head. That's just the way things are, but I'm sure as hell going to stick with my socialist beliefs, because I know that for a fact...
Can I just interject here something quickly? Does anyone actually here know who Woodrow Wilson is? I just want to... Don't say anything. I just want to see if the Americans know who he is, because the Americans should know who he is. Actually, we should know who he is, being Brits. But... He's the American president who was there during World War I, who tried to create the League of Nations, this idea, United Nations.
But backed out.
Stand together. Yeah, but then the Republicans, about 5 Republicans came, told him, fuck no, we aren't signing up to this League of Nations. And then he said, I'll go on a campaign and we'll have a referendum. And he got so stressed out that he died during the campaign. Now, this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but...
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Because
the fact that he died.
No. Yes, it does, because it was capitalism that stopped them. You know why they tried to You know why they tried to like...
Wilson was a capitalist!
No. What? No. Listen, Woodrow Wilson wanted to create the League of Nations so that they could use...
It wasn't socialism and capitalism. He wanted to create it so that there would be no more war.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with economic policy. He wanted the USSR, which is a communist country, to be in the same organization as Britain, France, and America, right?
Dude, the Soviets were part of the Allied powers in World War II, and they're communists.
It's debatable whether or not. If you actually look at Russia, if you go and you actually look at how Russia sees World War II, they call it their own war or something like that, because they don't think that we helped them.
Of them died. Yeah,
but they don't think that the West helped them. They see it as 2 wars that happened simultaneously.
They were still allied. It happened.
The Comintern and the Western allies, they kind of had a non-aggression pact, is the best way to put it. They were never really allies. It was just, you're killing them on the east, we'll kill them on the west. Because if you look at it, the Russians were desperate throughout the war to get the Western powers to open another front, but they refused to because they wanted to see how many Russians the Nazis could kill. Because if you actually look at it, when the Soviet Union was formed in the aftermath of World War I, the US, the UK and France supported the White Russians. I'm not talking about the colour of their skin, they were literally just called the White Russians, who were the capitalists, and they went around killing everyone in their path. So, but they supported them because they were more fearful of the Red Russians, who were communists, who also went around killing everyone in their path. So the fact is that they were never really allied because of what happened there. But I think it does also show the fact that both communists, capitalists, everyone, both of them have the capacity to go around massacring loads of people. It's not just one is better than the other. There are some other ideologies as well, which I think we should just briefly touch on, which aren't economic based. So there's nationalism, there's also radical Islamism, and I think anarchism.
Wait, is libertarianism not a thing? Or?
Libertarianism is the idea that you're responsible for yourself and no one else. You have to defend your own turf. That's the idea of libertarianism.
Okay.
Yeah, it's PUBG, but in real life.
Yeah, but is that not kind of
realistic PUBG without all the weapons? Well, actually, never mind. It is.
Well, if it's in the US though, they would have the weapons though.
Funny joke.
Let's not get onto gun politics. This is just gonna. But anyway, so back to what we were talking about beforehand. So if we just go on the other ideologies, I think the big one is nationalism. In the US, you guys in school have to sing the national anthem, right?
No, not really.
Is that a thing?
Well, no, that's true.
I don't know.
I don't have to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, the Pledge of Allegiance. The fact is that here in Europe, that looks actually like you guys are properly Nazis, because the problem is in Europe,
Well, no, not really.
Let me just.
You can't just call them Nazis. You can't call them Nazis because they sing their own bloody anthem.
It's not about it's not about the economics. It's about the society. Let me just justify my point. We had problems with Mussolini, with all the right-wing dictatorships in Franco's Spain, Greece, whatever the hell happened there during the 50s. We've had a massive problem with nationalism. So if somebody came and started singing the national anthem somewhere in Britain out of context,
yeah, that doesn't make them Nazis.
They would probably be viewed as like a far-right UKIP supporter. As the fact is that if you go on university campuses in Europe and you were to start singing the national anthem, most of them would probably view as racist, because we have a massive problem with universities. People are being indoctrinated into Marxism. That's an actual statistic that has been reported in newspapers and everything. But the problem is, I think with nationalism, is that it depends on which side of the Atlantic you're on. In Europe, we have to not repeat the same mistakes that we made in the 20th century. But I think the US, especially with Trump and everything, but as America first, I don't think he realizes that every other country wants to put its interests first as well. You can't just push other people around, right? That's what the European powers did with colonialism. You can't do that anymore. It's not possible in the current economic system we have in the world. So I think nationalism is actually a rising scourge, because you're basically what you're doing, you're saying, I would die for a flag. That's what you're saying. And it doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. Why would you die for a flag?
There's a problem with that. There are people within the United States who do not support the flag. I am not one of those people. I love my country.
But you're referring to it as the flag, as in it's like a god deity or whatever. You see, that's the problem, is that people are willing to put their life on the line for a flag.
No, I think that's just like
the flag is a symbol of our country. We will die for our country.
But we have symbols in this country as well. We have symbols as well. But the problem is that
patriotism.
Yeah, that's the problem though, because that's what caused a lot of the wars in the 20th century. Look at Greece and Turkey. Nowadays, they're both trading partners, and they're both, in NATO and everything, and should have good relationships. But because of their history, and the fact that, one of them colonized the other 2,000 years ago, the other one colonized the other one 1,000 years ago, they still hate each other and everything. There's no logical sense of it. Look, okay, do you guys know the country of Macedonia? It can't join the EU, it can't join NATO, and it couldn't even join the UN for a while, because Greece objected to its name, because Greece has a region called Macedonia. So now Macedonia's name has been changed to the former Yugoslavian Republic of Macedonia. But the Macedonians should have the right to name their country what they want. Just because the Greeks and their own nationalists, don't like the name, shouldn't have anything on them. That's the problem with nationalism, is you're trying to enforce your own views on someone else. you're saying that my views are better than yours because my country is superior, right? It's what facilitated colonialism in the first place. The fact that my country is superior to your country because we have better technology and we have a better flag or whatever.
Well, hey. There's a poor country, and you got a rich country that has so much weaponry, a bigger army. That country is completely superior to the country lower than it, no doubt.
But the fact is, you can't just push them away, because that's the problem with nationalism. Is it just says, "Oh, you've got a resource which we could buy from you, or we could just invade you and make up an excuse that you were building chemical weapons." And if you don't know what I'm referring to, it's George Bush and Tony Blair trying to find a magical chemical weapon somewhere in Iraq in 2004, which didn't exist.
But got a lot of people into trouble.
Yes, ISIS came about because of the power vacuum they left.
Oh Christ, let's not talk about ISIS, please. Anything.
Actually, let's talk about another major ideology which is causing a problem now, and it's beginning to cause a problem in Europe. I don't think it's in the US.
No, it's absolutely in the US. Absolutely. You guys, okay, you know about Islamic terrorism and radicalism that's going on.
Yeah, we know. I know a thing or two about it.
Like, Stan, the editor, come on, of all countries, who's going to know about Islamic, radicalism?
Yeah, dude,
the US, of course.
A lot of US citizens are Islamophobic, dude.
Obviously.
Yeah.
But that can be attributed to the media, to be honest.
Any of you guys here are actually Islamophobic, by the way? Just check that.
No, I am not.
Okay, that's good. I'm actually a Muslim.
We're all human.
But I don't think you guys in the US have to worry about this yet, because you only have a population, I think your Islamic population is at 2.5% or something. But we have to start worrying about this in Europe, because a lot of Muslims aren't secular, and they still have their roots. Like the burqa, and they cover their face. That's not religious. That's actually a cultural thing that came from the deserts of Egypt and Saudi Arabia that the Wahhabis appropriated and said, "Oh, Muslims should wear this." But basically, in the UK, Christianity is on a drop. We're a majority atheist country at the moment. But the way statistics are working out, by 2100, we're going to be a majority Muslim country. Sweden is already like 10% Muslim. Germany is heading towards 10% when they're letting in all those Syrians. So the fact is, I think the West is going to start realizing that they have to start secularizing all these people.
No, I disagree. Can I say something here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I hate to be the advocate for all the Islamophobes and all the other nasty people out there, but you have to consider that there are copious amounts of people who are willing to literally kick and shove these Muslims out of their countries. Like, take the UK, take UKIP, for example. They just want to ship over the immigrants to the other side. They don't want anything to do with us. And that's a belief popularized by the media because of all this Islamic terrorism and such, and popularized by people within their social groups. People don't want immigrants. People don't want Muslims. I hate to say that, but that's the truth. And there's going to be a social movement if the Muslims and the immigrants still keep coming into our countries.
The ironic thing with the US, though, is that most people in the US are descended from immigrants. If you're not a Native American, you are technically an immigrant. So that's just, looking at it from the perspective of Europe.
Yeah, but you have to be kind of lenient.
I know what you mean by it, but the thing is, you got to realize that people can integrate into countries, right? I might call myself Pakistani, but I see myself as British. The fact is that it's not about, per se, just blocking people out, because the thing is that if you look at the UK, none of these UKIP people are going to do the jobs the immigrants do. They say, "Oh, get rid of the Romanians." You know what, Brexit? The Romanians have stopped coming now. And the fact is, the UK fruit picking industry literally nearly died and collapsed without the immigrants. I don't think people realise how dependent we are on the immigrants. In the US, if all those Mexicans left over the border back behind Trump's wall, Mexico's economy would get a sudden surge because a lot of intelligent Mexicans have moved to the US. But what would happen is that the US would have a massive brain drain, and they would have massive problems with their economy because all the less well-paid jobs are done by immigrants. The problem is that they're just not integrated properly. You don't want a billion immigrants coming in, but you should still have immigrants because they bring in new ideas and they bring in new information. If you get it right, the immigrants who come to your country can be the smart ones and you can get their knowledge and stuff. But you need to be able to integrate them. You can't just let them have their own society. You can't just let them exist on their own. You can't have little Pakistan start Britain. You need to have Britons who are ethnically Pakistani but still know that they're in Britain and they follow British society. That's what you need.
Okay, that was a fantastic conversation. We talked about a lot of stuff into not as much detail as we could have, to be honest. Those were some serious topics.
We could have continued for a while.
In any case, it's been a pleasure talking to you guys. Hopefully the audience enjoyed the content as well, but Thank you for listening in, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.